I didn't do any preparation for this, by the way, Tony. I'm just flying by the seat of my pants. Just
Totally
so you
good.
know. But this is
Fine with me.
We're doing this semi-monthly devlog for our Patreon supporters, and I just thought it'd be a cool way because the beer nights just it wasn't working out. You know, we couldn't
Right.
all schedule to be in the same place at the same time, and I felt like we were underserving the people who were financing our game essentially. And so just some attempt to kind of keep them in the loop and also get a chance to know everybody on the team a little better. I mean, they hear my voice. I'm sure they're sick of it. But each of you guys, the real the wheels that make this bus go, we're all part of it, and you're a huge part of it. You're an enormous part of the identity of Call of Saregnar, and just I know this is all just an excuse. I just wanted to hang out with you for a few hours.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
We'll be here all night.
I'll do anything I can to justify that.
Fair enough.
No, but how are you doing? What have you been working on lately for the game? We have so many new tracks that you've been sending in.
Yeah. So I've been doing okay. So actually, I'm only just now kind of coming out of the woods in terms of applying. How do I put this? Applying better instruments, better sounding sample libraries, better sounding orchestral libraries to older tracks that I wrote, I would even say like 3 years ago. I think the last one I turned in was literally one of the first ones I wrote. It was like some inner shop tune. And I think like the original project file was like 2018. And like I haven't touched it since. So not only was I going back to reapply some kind of include the more modern instruments that I'm using now, I had to like remix a lot of stuff from the ground up. So that process actually took me a lot longer than I thought it was going to. Mm-hmm. From the Romar town tracks to the Avonmore Castle and town tracks and all that stuff. Originally I was like, I'm just going to go in and throw in my new better sounding flutes or whatever. And it ended up just being like starting from scratch on a lot of these songs. And so originally I was like, oh, it'll take me a few months. It was like 5 months, maybe 6 months of like remixing these original tunes. So that's finally done. So now I'm working on pretty much, I guess you could say, all new stuff from this point moving forward. So dungeon music, cave music, just like kind of your stereotypical, I don't want to say stereotypical, but like the kind of music that like every game has, right? Like dungeon tunes, battle music, dialogue tracks. Damian wants some kind of throughout the game, throughout the story, for like tense moments, for peaceful moments, mm-hmm. for lighthearted moments, for comedic moments. When you're talking to a soldier, like certain tracks devoted to those little dialogue elements. So that's going to be a lot of fun actually, because they're all going to be kind of shorter, all going to be kind of little bits and pieces, but hugely varied in style. So that'll be fun to make all of those.
Yeah, so just to kind of back up a little bit, when you're replacing the instruments, meaning you're going into the MIDI file and you're just changing the voice of. So is that like you just change the sound library and you're done, or?
No, because again,
you made it sound so simple.
Right. That's why it took me so long, was because so not to get too technical, but the original stuff that I was using was all made by a company called East West. And mm-hmm. they, I actually really like their stuff.
Now you're using North South.
What's that? No,
so now you're using
North South. No, so now I'm using the Orchestral Tools mm-hmm. Berlin Symphonic series for everything but the strings, because I actually really like the East West strings. But basically, every library of that kind of caliber, right? No matter who makes it, all these different companies make all these libraries, these sample libraries, is that everything has its own quirks, its own, when you program it a certain way and from one sample library, if you just to copy and paste, it wouldn't always work. It might be too loud or too quiet or too annoying or something. And some instruments may have certain resonances, right? Or like, so I had to kind of go back and re-EQ everything and recompress everything. So it ended up just being a huge remix process. And it was actually kind of a side note. It was actually the second remix process, because originally when I first started working on this game, we were going for the old school MIDI sound. Like we were going for like the lo-fi kind of 1999 sound, that you'll hear in Quake and all that, Doom and all those things. And then it was like, well, I don't know if we want to deal with this. Like we kind of want it to sound a little bit more modern. So then I remixed it to make it sound more modern. And then most recently I went back to remix that modern part for now what I'm currently using. So it was just kind of like, I've had to listen to some of those songs too many times to count that I'm kind of glad I'm at this point. Like now everything moving forward, it's like I have what I need, everything's set in place. This is officially going to be the direction of where the music will be from start to finish. Because there's only so many times you can go back to redo something, right? You can only move forward at some point.
Yeah, I want to take a moment just early on before we get too far in. There is an air show happening near my house for the people listening, and I will do my best to edit it out. But if some of it makes it in, I'm just apologizing ahead of time. But yeah, that's so cool. Like the whole, there's so many like minute details that you never really understand about the process that someone is doing, what their work is, and until you do it yourself or, really
Right.
have them explain it or observe. I mean, like, a podcast even seems very simple. You record the audio, you slap it into an editor, you put a theme song on it, and you throw it out into the world. But there's,
Right.
Every time I meet someone who's like, like, hey, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. You want some, can you give me some advice, or like, how would I go about this? And I'm just like, good luck. Like it's a lot. There's a lot to it, and it is, once you understand it all, it becomes like routine and simple. But like,
right.
Explain it to someone, like, how do you get your stuff on iTunes and all these other services and things like that? I mean, like, and which host site do you use, and how do you market it? And like, and in your case, like, how does this guy make all these instruments and sound so good? And I get it. It's so complex.
It's fun though.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say that there are times and days where there are so many parts of the process where I just like, between you and me and the rest of the people who listen to this, it's like that sometimes there's a lot of the process that I'm just not a fan of. Mm-hmm. Right. And I'll have to, I will say that it's usually when I'm stressed in other parts of my life. So if I'm like stressing out about, I don't know, something else in my life, that's usually when I'm like, the last thing I want to do right now is edit some MIDI data. Right. Whereas like I have more fun doing the actual like the actual notes. Like this is what the harmony is. This is what the melody is. That's, for me, that is by far the most fun part, because that's what I grew up with. I grew up with just sheet music and handing it to people. So adding in the technical stuff, that for me, it's been a journey. I would say a lot of hills and valleys of coming to love the actual process of the more programming, mixing, that sort of thing. Though I did bring on a mastering. I'm going to have someone else master it, because that's its own. I mean, I can do a decent enough job, but I want it to be really good. So I'm going to bring on my friend Trey to master it. Yeah,
I saw the tweet the other day, because my response was like, "Hey, you can't hire somebody without telling." I'm just fucking around.
Yeah, right. Sorry about it. Outsourcing.
we hired someone. We got a new team member, and no one told me. But that's just reflective of me being the very absent, project manager that I've been lately.
We can call it outsourcing. We don't have to call it hiring. We can call it outsourcing.
It's awesome, man. I don't care. It's just, no, that's really cool. So like, what is difficult for you? Like what makes mastering the thing that you're like, I'm going to let someone else do it? Like,
so I would say there's two components to that. The first of which is the actual process, right? Again, I kind of know, okay, this is what mastering looks like. Here's the audio file, not all the instruments together, not the individual tracks, but this is the whole finished file. Okay, make it sound better, make it sound more polished, make it sound smoothed out, fixing dynamics and all this stuff that, like, when you hear a song on the radio, you've got the person who mixed it and you've got the person who mastered it. They're usually two different people. And then you have like the 10 songwriters, depending on if it's a pop artist or just like, a band, whatever it is. But the mixing and mastering is two separate processes. And for me, over the course of my journey, a lot of what I've learned and a lot of what I've kind of worked on in terms of the technical stuff is the mixing side. When it comes to mastering, there's a lot of tools, a lot of things and helpful guides, but it's just as much a skill as it is composing, producing, songwriting, you name it. Mastering is its own niche. And I can kind of get my way through it for the sake of like, here's what it could sound like pretty good. Trey, my friend Trey, he's done some mastering for some albums of mine, my more singer-songwriter type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he's done a phenomenal job. And testing the waters a little bit, my last EP release was very orchestral. It was vocal plus orchestra, but it was very orchestral. And he did a phenomenal job. I was like, okay, I know I can rely on him for an orchestral soundtrack
Right.
in terms of getting it just to, again, going from track to track, or let's say you're walking in the town and then you go into a battle, making sure that the bass isn't too loud in comparison to the previous track. Like, it's just kind of leveling everything out so it all kind of fits into the same box.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the skill. And that's the first component. The second component being that the reason why I don't want to do it is because I know the songs so well and I know all the tiny details that it can be nice to have someone who's kind of looking at it like, you go to a museum and you see a very beautiful painting. Like the painter would know all the tiny little little details. Whereas me as a consumer, it's like, okay, that's the painting. It just, you see the big picture. Where like having him master it, he's not going to probably care about the little things that I personally would be kind of leaning into, So it's good to have someone who hasn't heard it 1,000 times already to do that job.
Yeah. It's just kind of like a second set of eyes, even, maybe,
Right.
I understand where that comes from, where it's like there are things about yourself, even maybe that you accept, like you just like, that's normal to you that you don't realize. And then having someone else there to not gloss over the things that you usually just don't deal with. I'm doing a poor job of orating what I'm trying to say here, but I think you get it.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited to see. He's working on it right now. I'm excited as the time of this recording. I'm excited to see this first batch of stuff because it's mostly going to be for the demo and the early access and all. It's all the stuff that he's working on now. I'm kind of going chunk by chunk with him, but it'll be really cool. I haven't heard anything yet, but it's always fun to hear kind of like his approach. And again, usually you don't even know it. Usually it's just like, oh, this sounds better. Like anytime I've worked with a mastering engineer, it's like, I don't know what you did, but it just sounds better. So, hey, I take it.
They threw it through Auphonic or something like that.
Yeah, right. And charge me an arm and a leg.
Yes. I mean, that's always the best thing when it's like, you get hired to, I don't know, let's say it's like work on a website or whatever, or let's say you're even better, you're an electrician and somebody hires you to do a job that seems like crazily overwhelming, and you go up in the attic and you realize it's literally just like plug it back in or something like that. You come down.
Yeah, right. It's like, oh yeah, well, there goes that paycheck.
Gotta make this one last an hour, guys. Just sit up there for a long time, eat a sandwich. No, I'm just kidding, but yeah, I mean that's really neat, man. That's so interesting that you think about everything. Like you're not. A lot of people would just say, "I'm going to do it myself because that," but you're willing to say, like, this is not my forte, and it'd be better if I pass it off. Or conversely, just freeing up some of your time, even like if you had to master every single track, maybe you're not working on the next one or something like that.
Right, and that's I would say kind of part of the decision is for the last. I would say for the last couple of projects, aside from Call of Saregnar, I did it all myself. And again, did a well enough job where no one would really know, like, no one would say, oh, wow, the bass in this one is like 30 times louder than the, like, I know enough to kind of, kind of mask my slight inadequacies with mastering. But it's the thing now. Okay, I've got Call of Saregnar. I've got a couple other projects at the same time. In order to kind of keep the train moving,
right.
It's like this whole process, because I would say it's my weakest point. It's better use of time and money and energy and everything to hand it over to someone else. And again, I've seen his mastering work on his stuff, my stuff. And it's like, man, it's like, and he's a good friend. And I think that's also helpful too, is it's not just like some rando, like, maybe it would be cool to have my music mastered by whoever masters, all the Marvel soundtracks or whatever. They're, whatever it is, but like, sure, that would look cool on paper, but if I don't know the person, I don't know. I like the idea of kind of keeping it within people that I know and trust.
Right. It's part of thing that I like the most about our team in general is that, it's very small, but everyone's like very just intercommunicative, that everyone's really good at saying like, this is what I need, or this is what, whatever. And then it just gets done, and you can trust that, as opposed to working, in some other projects that I've involved in, like working in Jira with like a whole, Scrum and all that, like task tracking and everything. And like maybe at some point Call of Saregnar would get to a place where that might be necessary, but for me, my end, like I don't even look project manager. What the fuck do I do here? Like you guys just manage yourselves. So like, as long as the house isn't burning down and I don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
But and it's really been interesting though, like just getting to know that and like seeing how you guys function in general. Full disclosure to the people out there, there's one chat, like in our Discord that's dev team, and all of the business for the, other than me, like asking for marketing stuff in the other Discord, everything just gets done. Everybody just talks and takes care of it. And it's like, as opposed to like Valkyrie, where there's more people working on the game, but it's like, there's every person has like their tasks, and you have to check them off when you're done, just to keep everybody in the same headspace. Right. Like we know, okay, did that get done? That person's in a different country or asleep or whatever. You just go and look through it, like, okay, that didn't get done, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm working on one game called Evercraft Online. It's kind of like a spiritual successor to EverQuest.
Yeah, I saw it, that when you posted something about it, and I started looking, I was like, man, I don't usually play that kind of game, but this looks cool. Like maybe I'll play.
Yeah. Thanks. The devs are doing great, and I think they frequently chat with like previous developers in EverQuest who have their own Twitch channel, and so it's really, they're really connected with the EverQuest community. So it's very interesting, and of course the music. When I did some music tests for the lead developer, I was like, here's the same tune. You can have it kind of hyper realistic, like super realistic orchestra, like I'm doing for Call of Saregnar, like kind of middle of the road, like maybe like PlayStation 2 style, and then like old school, like MIDI sounding stuff. And he was like, oh, we got to go MIDI. So it's been really fun to kind of have that contrast of like Call of Saregnar is kind of musically, stylistically still kind of classical sounding, and then also classical sounding over here, but really Roland, like ultra MIDI sounding. That Discord is very much what you were describing with Valkyrie, with kind of multiple channels, and like here's the music channel and here's the whatever channel, and I kind of just take care of my own, like here's the track listing, here's my nicely color coded Excel sheet, these ones are done, highlighted in green, this version numbers and all that stuff. So I like to do that just to make sure that everyone else like doesn't have to worry about it. Like I just kind of do that on my own time. It's just like here's the mixed version number that you're using and these masters and whatever. But again, I feel like music is unless it's super dynamic music and you have to really be involved with a lot of the programmers and stuff. I would say music is kind of like, does it work and does it blend with the sound effects? And if so, then good luck. We'll see you when the game's done. It's kind of in a way, it's a blessing and a curse, I'd say. Yeah.
It's really it's cool that you ended up working on another project that is a spiritual successor to another game that has a known reputation. It's kind of like EverQuest is huge, right? Like,
right.
From a marketing standpoint, it's like if you are making something that is, it is inspired or is a spiritual successor or like a sequel or whatever to something else. It's important to serve the community that already exists for it. You can't just reinvent the wheel and change it, and then like to such a great extent that you alienate the people who are the number one demographic for what you're selling to.
Right.
Luckily, Betrayal at Krondor only like 16 people or whatever even played that. I'm kidding, but
I gotta say, I'm trying to play it. I really am, but it's so like we as a community of gamers have been so spoiled. Like you go back and try and play it, and it's like. You have this little box, this little visual box, and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is what, 22 years ago, that was the coolest thing ever. Now it's Are
you playing it in DOSBox?
Yeah.
Oh, you can make it full screen.
Yeah, but I mean, like even the visual, like movement, where you're moving around, because you have like the permanent UI so it's almost like you're perpetually looking through like some binoculars all the time. It's I'm going to be very honest here and say it's a struggle, but I'm promising I'm making myself play it because maybe it'll grow on me. Maybe it'll just like, because I will say the story, everything is very fascinating. It is like reading a good book. It's great for what it is. It's great. It's almost like you have to turn back the internal clock. It's like, okay, this isn't Skyrim. It doesn't control as seamlessly or as what we're used to.
Right. The very first time that I broke out that game, I understood ahead of time, like, this is going to be rough. Like, yeah. But once I got into the groove, it became natural again. Like, oh, I can just, now I'm just, once you're like 2 or 3 hours into sitting at your desk banging out on this game, which I did like a whole day of, like, I was just playing the first episode and like,
nice.
And we made it fun because I had a Red Eyes Green Dragon with me.
Oh, great.
And we were like voice acting all of the dialogue in like in the most inappropriate accent for that, for that character or whatever. And it was really, it made it fun. Honestly, I thought about it, like, that might be really fun to do, like, just as a stream in general. It's just like grab some friends of ours who do, or just who are funny. They don't even have to be voice actors, and play the whole game doing that. But
yeah, I sat down. I think my wife was somewhere. I think she was out with a friend, and I was like, "Well, I got like 30 minutes, an hour to try this." Mm-hmm. I was like, "I'm going to need more time." It's like, I'm going to need more time to get used to this. 30 minutes is not enough.
Yeah,
but it's cool. I mean, it is. I will say, like, I really do enjoy that type of stuff. It's just, again, it's when you become so modernized and everything is so just, everything now, no matter what game, what system you're playing it on, everything is so streamlined. Yeah, it's cool. And I actually really like how Damian, and with what I did play, I see how Damian is kind of taking that style, but also making it way more accessible. And not to say that Betrayal is inaccessible. It is. It just it's a steeper learning curve these days. But I like how Damian's kind of taking the approach while making it more modernized, modern friendly, so to speak.
Right. And that was like a fundamental design pillar that,
right.
It was important to me when I first looked at the project and was like, okay, if we made Krondor exactly like it was the first time around, nobody would buy this.
Right.
And like, so that, and this is normal, again, a lot of retro games like have to take this into consideration in general, because
right.
I think I've said this a million times. You don't want to recreate the game. You want to recreate the feeling the game made in you.
Right.
If that makes sense. And yeah, it's perfect. It's coming out really great. And I love it. The first time I played it, I had never played Krondor. Like, I understood what it was, but I playing Saregnar, and I was just like, this is awesome. But there were some weird things that Damian held strong to that I didn't understand until we talked about it later. Like, like originally there was the footstep sound thing and like just little quirks and stuff like that. Once I actually broke out Krondor and like really dove deep into it, suddenly a lot of things in Saregnar made a lot more sense. And I hope because this is our Patreon supporters listening, like, I hope that they're not like afraid because some of the people contributing to the project are like not experts on the game or whatever, like that kind of thing. Yeah, because we have the expert, that's Damian.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm totally just trusting Damian because he knows way more than I think anyone else on the team, I would say, in terms of sort of what he has a vision. Let me put it that way. He's got the vision down pat. And I always say, that's why I'm always saying I'm just so grateful you've got me on board, because it's like, this is really his baby. This is his project. It's like, all I can do is just do what he wants me to do, that's it. And then I trust that he will take care of the rest. Cause, I think what's so great about his process is that he's very communicative with the community. He's very communicative with the patrons, and his Patreon, and he's taken so much feedback to heart over the years. I've seen things go back and forth. Even for music, it went from like, realistic to, let's try the lo-fi sound, and then back to the realistic stuff. And now it's like, now like 3 years later, it's like, here's the stuff that's officially grounded and now moving forward. So in a way, it's actually really cool that he took a lot of time, I would say, over the last few years to really just kind of make sure that things were moving in the right direction for the people supporting it and for, kind of, again, as a spiritual successor. And you don't see that a lot. You don't see someone literally take years just to like fine tune the smallest things before he really then moves forward with the rest of the game.
Right. No, it's like, it's a labor of love for sure for him. And it's, I mean, honestly, like it's sometimes I feel like if he weren't doing this game, what would he be doing? Because this is like his purpose in life or something.
Right.
He feels so strongly. And I mean, that's an appropriate thing for an artist of any kind to feel. Like, hopefully this means a lot to you. Otherwise the passion won't shine through and it's just it's just work. The fact that he's gone so long, keeping the same track, moving forward, and doing this, basically part-time after his day job. So he has a day job and a wife and a kid, and he's a father. He's all these awesome things.
Yeah.
And then also puts in more work than, I don't know how many hours could possibly be in the day.
I don't know.
He's like a really well-rested, responsible individual. It's like, I don't get it. Like, I don't understand. I'm like half the time he's like, I'm going on vacation or whatever. I'm like, weren't you just on vacation?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, when does the work get done? When does that confuses me about, not to grossly stereotype, but European people in general, as opposed to our American mindset of how labor works. Like, there's something missing here that we're not getting, because I'm just like, what are you guys doing? You're on vacation again? Like,
it's crazy. Oh, I know. I have plenty of European friends who are going on their holiday multiple times a year. And I'm like, I'm jealous. I'm pretty sure like job descriptions will be like, you have to be working 50 weeks out of the 52 weeks of the year. It's like you get 2 weeks tops of vacation or whatever it is. Yeah, it's interesting. But that's why I always emphasize, if I can, sleep to people, especially composer. The composer community is very, I would say, is a very, if I say so myself, a victim to that kind of, frankly, like balls to the walls, like go hard or go home. I've seen so many composer friends of mine just burn out, myself included, a couple years ago, that I've since really like made sure that I kind of take care of myself. Because I think there's this certain idea of like producing and then making sure you show it. It's this back and forth of like, okay, well, I have to make something and I have to put it on my Twitter in order to kind of keep going. And so anyway, but that's a different topic for another day. But so I'm a huge advocate for like getting rest, just basically taking a day off away from everything, I think is so critical. And Damian does that too. You see him posting pictures from his hike with his family and stuff like that's awesome. I'm glad that he takes that time. Because that's what kind of at the end of the day, when he's done making Call of Saregnar, that's the stuff that's going to matter,
Yeah. And that's another thing about it in general, is that because everyone here, like probably me the least, I'm probably the one who's like the most balls to the wall all the time, like never take a day off kind of mindset. And I think that comes from my professional background in general, but
right.
The fact that everybody is, resting and taking care of themselves means that the game will eventually happen, as opposed to, if you burn yourself out on it and it gets to the point where like none of us want to even think about this game anymore.
Right.
God forbid, like you just said, I've thought about it and I can't do it anymore, guys. I'm over it. I don't want to see this game ever again. And then we're done. And then we don't have like, how are we we can't replace you. We definitely can't replace Damian. So
yeah. No, it's true. There was a time, I will say, it was when I first started. So 2018, when I first joined up here, when my wife was actually dealing with some pretty difficult health things, that was just making everything became hard. Like it was like, okay, home life is hard. Now everything's hard. That I got very close. And I even told Damian this at one point. I told both him and Ben this. I said, there was a point where I was like this close to being like, okay, I just can't do this project. It's too big. I just need to, you'll find someone else. I came very close to making that, to having that conversation. But I hung in there and I'm really grateful that I did, because I think at this point for me, Call of Saregnar currently is, and probably will be something that I always will look back on and be like, I'm just so grateful for this project. Just given the people I work with, and of course the the style of game, of course, and the game itself, and all that stuff, the style of music. But I still sometimes I think when I get real stressed and overwhelmed, I'm like, don't make any decisions, because the decision to stay when you really were stressed out and really were like having a tough time was the best thing you could have done. Because now I really see sort of the fruits of the labor that not only that I put in, but just as a group, what the game is turning into and where it'll go. And I have no doubt. I have full confidence in you and in Damian that people will see this and people will play this and people are going to love it. I mean,
Yeah.
They may say, well, I don't know about the music, but they'll love the game. You know?
The thing for me is that Saregnar is like the easiest part of my day. Like,
Yeah.
someone, I was talking to another, I think it was Ted the other day, and we were just, comparing notes, like what's he doing at DreadX? What am I doing within the keep? And vice. And I was talking about all the different, stuff that goes on. Like, it's so stressful dealing with this and that, and, people having, different schedules and just trying to keep everybody on the same page moving forward. And then he's like, what about that other game? I was like, oh, Saregnar, it's doing great. I hadn't even thought about it. And that's not anything it's bad about Valkyrie. It's just that there's just more moving parts. Mm-hmm. And so that's what creates it. But like I said, I could just, the reason why I'm here while we're talking right now is because when Damian asked me, or initially he's like, would you like to come on as like be a project manager for this game? Man, I'm sure you've seen this, right? I wrote out that whole why not to hire me or any project manager for your game thing. Like, I don't think I'm necessary. I mean, I'm glad that I can be helpful. And in the background, I think I have been in a lot of ways.
Yes.
But this is not going to be like hard work for me at all.
Yeah. That's okay though. That's okay. Because that, you got to have balance. Mm. But I'm grateful for it. That's all I can say.
Yeah. It's been really cool just seeing some of the remasters and the stuff that you've done recently. You've posted in like the dev Discord, like some of the music that I haven't heard before. I haven't heard all the music. I've heard the theme song like a million times, and I've the things that are in the demo that I actually interact with. But some of the stuff I'm like, oh, I haven't heard this one yet, and, or at least haven't ingrained it in my head yet.
Right.
But I sent you I got so obsessed with the theme song that I was like playing it on multiple different instruments, like trying to.
Yeah.
I have like the heavy metal version of it now. I did the 12-string guitar version of it. And
it's an honor to hear that kind of arrangement, honestly. I will say I'm probably most proud of the main theme. And it actually I actually wrote the melody for that. I orchestrated it quite a bit when I guess that was 2019, 2018, I forget. When I got it live recorded, I went back in and reorchestrated it with just, 'cause, you learn, you create, you grow, you learn. So I just wanted to make sure it was of modern quality. And, it's something that I hope, my hope is that if people play the game and they don't remember a thing about the music, I hope that they remember that. That's like literally my only goal. Because again, it's not about the music, it's about the game, it's about the cohesive project. But I will say, just as a personal thing, like when people finish the game or when they walk away from playing it, like I hope that they just remember that little, dun, 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 dun. I hope they just remember that.
That's what happened to me. It's like as soon as I heard it, then I walked away, and the first thing that I wrote back, I think I wrote back to you about in the chat, was like the fact that I did continue to have that, we'll call it, a riff in my head for so long means like this is not just some, because a lot of projects that are classical music or whatever, just they sound like classical music and that's about it.
Yeah.
And then there's those ones that really stick, there's, everything that, all the Star Wars themes and Jaws. Mm-hmm. What's that guy's name?
John Williams.
Yeah. John Williams. Like that was what he was good at, was making those theme songs that just creep into your mind and you
right.
To me, like that's what makes really cool songs. There's really interesting stuff. Like one comparison I always draw is like, You ever heard "Rap God" by Eminem?
No.
So okay, well you don't need to, but so it's just this song where he's just showing off all of his skills. But to me, at least, there was nothing about it that was like memorable, other than the fact that he's just being amazing at what he does, or something like that. And like Eddie Van Halen's "Eruption," right?
Okay, yeah.
Like this is not a song with like recognizable peaks and valleys and like something you settle into. It's just him showing you how damn good he is at the guitar.
Right.
And a lot of classical music comes across that way, to me at least. You're like, I'll put it on and like, it's just music, it's just noise. Yeah. But you as an orchestrator, you might appreciate some detail about that that I would never recognize, because it's just not what I do. And I don't know what goes into it necessarily. I don't remember how I got on this tangent, but
the theme. Well, something about the theme.
Jesus, yes. The fact that it is recognizable and did make me hum means it's a great theme song. That's what I was trying to say.
And I appreciate that, Ty. I really do. And I think that's, for me, like, that's just kind of a personal mission. I went into doing the game music thing with knowing the fact that, sure, the first couple projects I did were kind of pseudo, like the Ambassador Fractured Timelines came out last year. That was kind of like hip hop orchestra stuff. I don't even know what that was. Even the developers, and like we still talk, and I'm like, dude, I was like, guys, I don't know why you made me make this style. They're like, well, we love your orchestra stuff, but we want lo-fi Celtic hip hop. And I'm like, okay. So I went into the game music scene knowing that the orchestra stuff was going to be kind of my thing, right? Mm-hmm. Sure, I may work on stuff that's not all realistic orchestra all the time, which is fine. That's just part of the work. But I'm sticking to my guns, because, you know, what you see now a lot of, at least in the larger indie scene, you know, maybe outside of the 3D Realms scene, I would say, what is most common now is very electronic, kind of like almost like everything is an anime. Like, I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way. I mean that in like, that's something that I probably will never do.
Right.
And I have had a close couple of friends and colleagues who just, I'm going to, you know, kind of do this trend. And so I don't know what's going to happen with the future of indie. I know another composer who shall remain nameless, and they said, you know, they're like, well, getting music recorded live is like a thing of the past. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to keep going. You know, I'm just going to keep my fingers crossed, because that's my first love with music, is the live performance element. And it's the kind of thing that if not Call of Saregnar, then hopefully Project in the Future or whatever. My goal is to just stick to this style. And if it returns, I mean, again, a good example is look at the I don't know how much if you listen to the Final Fantasy soundtracks, but like Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, 10 was very orchestral, very like you're listening to classical music practically.
I'm still listening to it. My cat's trying to come under the door though.
Oh.
Here, baby. She's going to be a guest on the show today. Oh, I got her. There we go. Say hello to Marie.
Hi, Marie.
I'm leaving this in, by the way. I'm not going to edit it.
That's fine. I was like, I suddenly looked up and I was like, you're leaving. I was like, okay, I guess.
No.
Never mind.
The door is right there, and like I could see her. I could hear her like meow meow meow, and she had her little paws under the door. She's just like wanted to get to me because she was afraid that I'd left her or something.
That's okay. I understand. My cat does the same thing. Yeah. But anyway, there's been this natural trajectory of orchestra music being very popular in games, and then suddenly kind of moving away from that a little bit. And so I would say, and I've had conversations too, where like the certain struggle for us fellow orchestra people, it's like, it's not really the most popular thing right now, which is okay. But it's also, right? What's that?
Well, there's like peaks and valleys to everything, you know?
Right.
And one, you know, if you stick to your guns right now and you stay being the guy that you are, you know, once everyone else has given up on live recordings and all this kind of thing, one day somebody with a lot of money is going to come along and be like, I really want to do a live recording for my game. You know, I think that's the appropriate thing. And they're like, who does that? Who could we reach out to? And you're going to be the only guy in town, and you can charge them whatever you want.
Right. That's kind of the goal. I mean, to put it blunt. No, but in all sincerity, it's something that I don't want to lose. Because I would say over the last year, sure, I mean, I'm signed on to Call of Saregnar and then a few other things, and I've been going back and forth of like, it's like, do I even feel, am I even like part of this larger community anymore? And I know I get very existential sometimes, but it's definitely been kind of eye-opening to see like how much the indie game music is moving into this like almost, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like Animal Crossing meets anime. Like it's whatever, this little like very chill, almost hip hop, almost
Chill
just
hop,
like light
yeah.
chill hop. Yeah.
Chill hop, low vibe beats to study to, that kind of
Right.
stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Right. It's so popular, which is fine, but it's like, I'm like, this is not me. I was like,
Well-
I want to get down and dirty with like my big brass swells and string lines, you know? But yeah, so I don't know, random tangent, but it's I think it's also why Call of Saregnar is such a gift to me, because it's like this whole game I can really lean into what I know and love.
Yeah.
And sure, not everything will be live recorded, but we've got I'm bringing on vocalists. I have brought on Caitlin Isaacson for a Temple song. There's going to be Tia is going to be another vocalist, and then Julie Elvin I want to bring on for some core tracks. So it's going to be really neat to see how many live performers will be featured. I've got a friend, Nat Willow, who will be playing violin. So like, while I may not be able to hire a whole orchestra for the whole thing, I will be bringing on soloists to kind of just keep the live element alive. And I'm probably going to sing something of my own accord somewhere there. I have to. If there's got to be a Bard song somewhere, I can just really be Tony the Bard. We got to convince Damian.
I've been, but he's very, serious about how he wants the game to be taken seriously, and that's I respect that completely.
Oh, big time.
But there's always the me like, can we put Dopefish in this cave? Like, and he's just no. We're like, you can't. Like, come on, can we? Can't we though?
I already have the role of narrator, so that's probably where I will stay. But it is neat to bring on other soloists, and especially singers. I think because as a singer, my tendency is like, well, I'm just going to sing it. It's like, well, no, I really want that like soprano voice, And Caitlin did a great job for the Temple, and actually everything that Trey is mastering now will be. And I don't know if this will be an official announcement or not. I'm going to say this, and if it is an announcement, I don't know. But there will be like a Call of Saregnar prologue EP to kind of give, and I might have mentioned that before, where it's going to be just kind of all the music from the most recent demo and a little bit of the stuff after, just to tide people over, so they have something of like out in the world they can listen to that's not just on bits and pieces on my Twitter or my SoundCloud or whatever. It'll be Spotify, iTunes, that whole thing. So when that next public demo or whatever you and Damian are planning, I'm not going to say anything else. Whenever the time is right, I will be releasing that EP kind of alongside of that, so people have stuff they can listen to, which will be fun. That'll be fun. I'm excited.
It's going to be really interesting. And one of the things that's like fantastic about you in general, you being part of the team, is you're already really good at marketing yourself. So therefore, the fact that you market yourself means you are therefore marketing the game, and it's all a big self-feeding loop. And that's great. And the other thing is that what you do iteratively, like when you create a track, you can share it. We can't just be like, if Damian is working on some level that is incomplete and just like, he can show that to some extent, but it's not really of much value to the consumer or even our Patreons. Like, they want to see, they want to see screenshots of really cool things and progress and hear about it, but you can't just like take every version of the demo and make it public.
Right. And that's actually going to be a challenge for me, because at this point moving forward, especially like things beyond the demo, and Damian and I have talked about this too, is I'll certainly be showing stuff to the Patreon members. But as for the public eye, I'm going to have to keep a lot kind of under wraps, just due to story reasons and other stuff. Because you don't want to give everything away, especially. But so that's actually going to be a kind of a challenge for me, because, and I mentioned this kind of in passing just a moment ago, is that for the composers in the game dev scene, so much of them finding work is by sharing their work. And so for me, I'm so I mean, you see my Twitter. I'm so used to just like, at least once a week, maybe twice a week, showing whatever it is I'm working on, just something. But at some point there will be a time, it actually very soon, where a lot of the stuff for Call of Saregnar, I won't be able to show to the public eye. The stuff that I'm working on. But again, for patrons, for sure, I will certainly show little works in progress, because I think that's what Patreon's for. But just for story purposes, location, stuff in game that I know Damian wants to keep kind of under wraps for the finished product. It's just going to be a weird shift for me. So we'll see what happens. My Twitter might go silent. I'm going to be in my hole, in this teal hole, just writing away, I guess.
At what point will it become appropriate to be honest about the fact that you actually live in Damian's basement and you're chained to a desk making music all day?
That's the plan. Yes. He's got my plane ticket already.
He's just standing at the top of the stairwell. It puts the lotion on the skin. No. One of the things that I wanted to get into a little bit about the theme song was the fact that you did record this with a live orchestra. And that's, I mean, when I was kind of like processing into the game as this was happening, and I was just trying to get my brain wrapped around what was going on here. But because when you guys said we're going to record it with like the Budapest Orchestra, I was thinking like, okay, so he's going to fly to Budapest and stay in the Grand Budapest Hotel, just like the movie.
Yeah.
And like, how did this tell the story of how this came to be?
So for starters, hiring an orchestra isn't necessarily cheap, especially for like Los Angeles, right? If I were to go, because I live in the US, doing a fly to LA and do an LA orchestra, they're actually very expensive to hire, versus, or even London actually is quite expensive, versus like Eastern Europe, Prague, Budapest. Those are actually the skill caliber is very much the same. The cost, for whatever reason, I'm not going to go into the economics of it all, but the cost is actually it's much more manageable. And so you'll see a lot of composers for indie films and games and so forth work with Budapest, with Prague, with the Czech Republic, all of that stuff, because it's just more cost effective for the indie scene, versus again, John Williams literally records with like the London Philharmonic or whatever it is, so he's, those are the big wigs. So that's why I chose Budapest. How it works actually is they have a very low latency. I forget what the software is called. It's very much a low latency, like we're doing right now, where like as soon as they play sound, it's funneling through my speakers. There's no video. Right. There's no video of my face. I actually can't even see them. If I had a guest with me I had like a guest student or something come in and watch it, they could see it. For me, it was purely audio. It was just audio only. Ultra low latency. And so I booked an hour with them because I wasn't sure how used to like the more romantic era sounding, like literally like the 4 French horns and 4 parts doing all melodic stuff. I wasn't sure if they were used to that versus like what you'll hear in most films, which is like the brass, just like Hans Zimmer bois, I wasn't sure what they were. So I was like, I'm going to book 2 30-minute sessions just in case, they're not used to this. And it was actually unfortunate. The day I had to Skype in with them, you schedule it and you book it all, and you have to have things on, like handed in on time and everything. The day of the recording, it was the second day of me having COVID. So like my fever was just out the roof. I felt awful. But like, what am I going to do? Not show up, So fortunately, I didn't have to fly to Budapest. Fortunately, I could just look like a sweltering lump in my office here and just kind of like somehow get my way through it. So unfortunately, if I'm being honest, the actual recording process is kind of hazy because I just felt so awful.
Right.
But I do remember the first take. Because I think they weren't expecting they're basically professional sight readers. They don't look at it. They don't look at it beforehand. Like the conductor might, but the players, they show up and they have a list of, here's the music that's in front of them today. whatever it is, they play it on site, which blows my mind because I'm so used to the classical music world. I worked with
Right.
a local orchestra not too long ago. And it's like, you go to rehearsal and they practice it. And then you're like, well, the flute line, I'm going to change the flute line a little bit there and just go home and then send it back to the next time we practice. Not this. This, it's like you show up, this is the music, and they play this and only this. So it was both remarkable and like terrifying at the same time because by the last take, they were nailing it. It was like this. I was like, they're ready to go perform this and tour this thing. They were just phenomenal.
Yeah.
So it blows my mind. These scoring orchestras, in Los Angeles, London, you name it, they are literally paid to sight read music. And I'm like, that would be the most terrifying job of my life if I had to do that.
Well, at least it's for a recording. It's not like you doing it on
Yeah,
stage,
right.
An audience.
And then, so they had, I think it was a total of 15 takes, and the song is it's 2 minutes. So they would play it through, and they would, they would say, are there any sections, you want to go over? And I would say, okay, well, measures, I don't know, 16 through 24 or something, felt a little rough with the bassoons. Can we just do those few measures? And they go in, and then of course you splice it all together, and it was very, very cool. And I'm excited to work with them again for, I have it slated in my little list to have 2, maybe 4 tracks total for Call of Saregnar live recorded, like the special ones.
Yeah.
Credits, that sort of stuff, just to tie. I'm pretty sure when I have the credits music recorded, I'm going to cry. Like, I'm pretty sure like when I get to that point, it's just going to be like, we made it, it's going to be a very bittersweet day when that happens.
Oh no, it's going to be, then the paycheck will come in and you'll be like, oh yeah, I'm happy again. Everything's
yeah, right.
Hopefully, if everything goes the way I expect. But no, that's interesting how like I never would have guessed that they just sat down and sight read that in an hour because it came out so fantastically. Like I thought that was the kind of thing that you had to practice for months or something like that.
Well, that's the thing, and that's why I booked 2 sessions too, because again, they are sight. It really wasn't until you book 30-minute sessions. It really wasn't until that second 30-minute session that they were really getting it. There's a lot of odd meter changes. It goes from 6/8 time to moments of 7/8. I mean, it's again. I designed it to sound like, okay, this is something that I would want to go. I want this to be something that people would want to go see live, right? Like a concert experience. And that's how I constructed it, and that's how I'm constructing the rest of the soundtrack, which kind of makes it take a little bit longer to make. Because again, I'm approaching it from the angle of like, it's a little bit more intricate, it's a little bit more complex, it's a little bit more involved. It's not just like, here's the 4-chord progression and some stuff on top. It's like, no, this is basically classical music in a soundtrack. So it takes a little bit longer to kind of make and mix because it's a different process. It's not just like, I don't know. I'm not downplaying other music that doesn't do this by any means. I'm not doing that at all, but there's a different process between here's kind of like the drum loop for the 16 measures. It's very different than kind of constructing it, how you would construct, I suppose, like hip hop music, where it's like, here are the loops that we kind of layer and kind of move in and out and change. And again, not downplaying that whatsoever. It's just for me personally, just this approach takes a little bit longer than other projects.
Okay, so I understand that you want to continue to do live music, but I'm putting on my project manager hat and I got to lay down the law. I still want you to have the live recordings, but we're not going to use the Grand Budapest Hotel Orchestra anymore. You're going to go. I need you to go down to the local middle school, and we're going to do the full soundtrack. Like that.
The cellist section of one cellist, basically, in like 30 violins.
We didn't have stringed instruments in my school bands at all. There were none. We didn't have a string section whatsoever. It was all brass and percussion.
Yeah,
and woodwind.
Concert band. Yeah, we have a local youth orchestra that I've always wanted to do something for them, just because they are local and I live in literally in the middle of nowhere, and I was like just kind of getting myself in the community and stuff, but haven't had a chance yet. They're still kind of growing their orchestra, their little youth orchestra. Mm-hmm. A lot of great concert bands around here. I've worked with one, and what you described, all brass and stuff.
Even
I
in
love doing that.
our like our high school symphonic band, there were no strings. Like nobody did
Really?
that. It was like,
Usually symphonic band will at least have like a double bass player.
mm-mm, nope.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know what if it was just budget or like, and it could have very easily been like, look, man, these kids they cannot afford cellos and shit, so like let's just not do
Likely
that.
the
Like,
case.
yeah, like that kind of
Very
thing. And
likely
like
the
the
case.
school was like, oh, can we afford to purchase a bunch of them? And they're like, no, we ain't got the budget for that.
Yeah.
We need to spend that on the administrators. He needs a raise. He only makes $400,000 a year. It's not fair to him. That kind of that's Alabama politics for you.
Yeah.
public school system management. But no, but then we didn't. It was weird because we didn't have a wrestling team either. And then I'd go to other high schools or see other high schools when I got older, and it's like, shit, man, these kids got it great. That's cool. They have all this stuff. Like, what happened to our
Yeah.
school? Why does it?
Yeah.
Why didn't
If
we
it's
have
any
that?
consolation, I
Yeah.
went to, and I loved my high school. It was like a
Yeah.
college prep, like all boys high school. Loved it was, hoity toity out the wazoo, but got a music scholarship and was like, okay, cool. I guess I'm going here, whatever. Grateful for it. Grateful for my parents for sending me there, whatever. Great education. But there was the talk of basically the joke of the entire city of Philadelphia was that Holy Ghost Prep didn't have a football team and it was an all boys high school. So,
Wow.
so our music program was very slim. We didn't have much of a music program when I was there. But
Sounds
I will
terrible.
say the coolest part, the coolest part, and my wife makes fun of me about this all the time, was that the way the music kids at our high school, Holy Ghost Prep, would get to meet girls was we'd do all the musicals for the all girls high schools. So we would all audition, and I actually really enjoyed doing the musicals and stuff. We had our own, so that was kind of like the way that, even with the music programs, like, oh, we're going to do a mixed choir, not just boys and not just girls. All the mixed, and we're going to go take a trip to Florida or whatever. It was always like, this is how you get a girlfriend if you go to one of these schools, is like join the music program and do the musicals.
Yeah.
But it was
I'm complaining about not having stringed instruments, and you're like, we didn't even have girls at my school. Like,
or football team. I'm pretty sure they even have like a T-shirt that's like undefeated since 1891 or whatever, like football. But yeah, we yeah, it's pretty much again the running joke. But I will say that, like, I never thought, to kind of try to keep things on topic, I never thought, like, when I was in high school, like singing, and that's my primary instrument. I play the organ, but I'm mainly a vocalist. Was like, I never thought, like, playing games, like, I'd be like doing this. And I don't think it ever hit me, like, until actually very recently. It's like, you know what? I'm actually like doing this. I'm actually writing music for games. Like, it took me about 4 years to kind of sit with the fact of, like, I'm actually doing the thing, like, in high school. I never even thought of it as a career. I just liked playing games. I mean, I'd be playing World of Warcraft with all the boys and being like, man, I love this tune in this dungeon or whatever. Like, I never crossed my mind, like, that was going to be the direction that I'd be going. So it's very humbling in that way. It's very interesting, and it may not mean a lot to people, to those who don't really kind of get games or understand video games or whatever. But I think when you grow up with something that connects you to the people around you, or especially the days before the internet, where it's like the only way you really knew about, like, what to do with a game was like go to a friend's house and be like, man, I can't beat this boss. How did you do it? Like, there wasn't the internet. Like, having that experience growing up and now being like, okay, well, now I'm on the other side. Like, now I get to actually create that experience for someone else. I mean, especially music. And I think whenever I don't know if you've ever been to, like, a video games live concert, where they bring in an orchestra and play music from, like, Battlefield to Final Fantasy to Zelda or whatever it is.
I've seen that, like, videos of that, but I've never been to one.
It's I would say it's comparable to, like, seeing your favorite band. And, like, if you've ever seen your favorite band, there's this sort of aura in the room where, like, everybody suddenly becomes everybody else's best friend, unless there's, like, a mosh pit. But even then, I guess they're friends. So it's the same vibe. You go and you sit in front of an orchestra and they're playing Legend of Zelda, and, like, a certain, tune comes up and everyone just starts cheering. It's one of the coolest things. And I think it's that kind of experience that I hope to achieve. Long-term goal, obviously. You know, I don't want to inflate myself too much. You know, I'm just a guy making music, but I would say that one of my long-term goals is really to have, whether it's music from Call of Saregnar or whatever it is that I've worked on, as part of one of those large video games live concerts, because it's something that connects to people so well, and not just because it's music, but it's because it's music from something they connected with at home, you know, and just brings it to life even more. I don't know. I could geek on about this forever, but that's, for me, I think it's when I see moments like that I'm like, this is why I do what I do. It's not about the music. It's not even just about the game. It's about the connective whole. It's about the, hey, I played Call of Saregnar. Did you? Oh, I love that spot. It's that element. That's what I love so much about working in this field, I think.
Bringing people together, man. You know,
Yeah.
that's with all art. It's like, it's, you know, you kind of hope for that one, even if it's like you're a complete failure, right? You're Van Gogh or something like that. What you always want is like that one guy who, like, you know, meets you at somewhere and just like, oh, you know, that one thing that you did that was like just something that most people don't even approach you about or whatever. Like, that was my favorite thing in the world. Or when two people, you know, Call of Saregnar, hypothetically, one day could be the conversation starter that brings two lifelong best friends or even a couple or something like that together.
Right.
I mean, think about all these, like QuakeCon, that kind of thing. It's just like this game, people bonded over this game so much that they, like, now every year they want to get together and hang out. And, you know, the whole time I was at QuakeCon in 2019, I don't think I played much Quake at all. I spent very little time actually playing the game. It was all just running around with my friends and going to restaurants and drinking beer and watching matches together and all that kind of thing. Like, that was what was so cool about it. Schmoozing at the dinner table, rubbing elbows with other people in the, you know, in the game and esports industry. I mean, that's what's special. You're right.
Right. And, you know, you mentioned sort of getting those comments of like, hey, like, you're, you know, thank you for doing this or whatever it is. I will say one of the most touching moments I had over the last year, especially with music, is, and I don't know if you've ever listened to it, Ty, but like sort of my kind of side albums that I'll do with my side music, my singer-songwriter stuff. But I released an album last year, actually, holy cow, like a year ago from tomorrow, like November 6th last year, called Rosewater. And I got an email a couple of months ago. Someone emailed me saying, like, hey, just wanted to say, you know, I listened to your song on your album, and it kind of instilled a conversation that I know, like, my fiance and I needed to have, and it actually really helped us kind of talk about things. It was very I would say, I don't like to use the word deep, but it was more, the album was about kind of darker topics and more difficult topics. And to get that email just from, like, hey, like, we listened, and, you know, I just want to say your song did this for me and my fiance. Like, it was like one person. You know, you think of, like, okay, you want to touch the whole world or whatever it is as an artist. But it was like the fact that one person just said, hey, your song actually opened up a conversation between my fiance and I. I was like, if I died tomorrow, like, I'd be fine. You know, like, it was one of those things where it meant so much because it was just one person who shared their experience connecting with my work. And, like, that kind of makes it all worth. That kind of makes the tough parts all worth it, I'd say.
Now, I think about that sometimes, that, you know, of the people who do listen to this podcast, you know, if they really do listen to every episode.
I heard that one.
I'm going to get up and close the door real quick. I might leave that in if it wasn't too overwhelming for them.
No, it was cool.
But, yeah. Holy cow, that distracted me big time. So, what was I just saying? Holy cow, I'm like a goldfish today. Damn airplane ruining my podcast. That's it.
Yeah.
Came back to me. You ever do that thing where it's like, if you forget what you're doing or whatever, you get up and you walk out of the door, and when you come back through the threshold, it comes back to you?
It comes back, yeah.
Yeah, it's so weird. Anyway, so if someone really does listen to every episode of In the Keep podcast, then they spend sometimes 3 hours a week or more hearing my voice all the time. Like, that is really bizarre. and I know how I feel about Joe Rogan or like, Chris Ryan or these like fantastic podcast interviewers who I admire, and I try to model myself in some fashion after because I admire their skills. But I know that like, I know him, like Chris Ryan, I know that guy. He has no idea who the fuck I am.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't know anything about me, but I've like heard this guy's life story. I've heard his wife speak, like I know every detail of his career because I've spent hundreds of hours just, whether I'm riding my bike or taking a walk or doing the dishes with his voice playing into my ear. And it means a lot to me when I do see someone, like they'll come in the Discord or something like that, and they just say like, "Hey man, this particular one meant like so much to me," or something like that. And that's what makes it all worth it.
Right.
It's not like this is $1 million enterprise or anything. So.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. And that's the thing too, is especially in regards to Call of Saregnar, it's like all we can do at the end of the day, no matter what you're working on, no matter who's working on what, at the end of the day, it comes down to just putting your best foot forward and just getting it out there. Really. Yeah. I mean, because I think so often artists, musicians, literally visual artists, programmers, game developers, we can all get so caught up in, like, it's got to be this perfect thing. And sure, you obviously want to polish and stuff, but we get so caught up in like the what ifs and like, oh, well, it could have been better, or it could have been this, or it should have done that, or I should have done this. It's like literally all you can do is just do your best and send it out there and keep walking, right? Like that's it. I know I struggled with that for a long time, a few years back, of just like really like hyper perfectionistic. I mean, I'm already kind of a perfectionist, but this was like on another level. This was like, I can't sleep at night kind of perfectionism. And, once I kind of got into the habit of just, this is my best at this point in my life. 10 years from now, I may look back and be like, wow, that sounds like garbage, but now this is my best. And therefore I will send it out into the world. And you just hope that people resonate with it. And if not, then you just make something else and you keep going.
You hope to, iteratively get better over time. I mean, it would be sad, if you're, 80 years old and your life is coming to an end and the only thing you're just nostalgic about that one time when you made the Call of Saregnar soundtrack. And then that was the last great moment of your life. And then like, we don't want that. We want you to do this and then do all the sequels and get a bunch of
all the sequels.
Yeah, there's going to be like 15, we're like, this is the next Final Fantasy. I'm kidding, but
that would be great.
I mean, it's job security for us at least.
Yeah, right.
But by the time you've made 15 games, we've probably sold the intellectual property and like,
that is a question for Damian that I'm curious to know if once he's done Call of Saregnar, if he'll make anything else. I think that's always the golden question I have in the back of my mind is like, would there be anything else? Or is this going to be kind of like his magnum opus and call
like
it
he doesn't
a day,
even want to be a game designer. He just wants to make Call of Saregnar kind of thing. Like,
that's it. Right. Like I wonder if that's
fades into his retirement years. Like, we never hear from him again. Just the paycheck comes in the mail.
Just off the planet, off the grid. He's done.
I don't think so. I strongly get the feeling that he has a lot more to contribute to the gaming industry in general.
I agree.
Maybe I know some shit you don't. I'll keep it to myself. Yeah. Well, we can talk after this, off the record talk. But no, I think he'll stick around. I hope so. Yeah. I'll ask him in the next devlog thing.
That's the toughest part, I think, is even creatively. Mm-hmm. As a musician too, it's like when you're done one thing, it's like, well, I got to start something else now. It's always exciting. But it's also always like you get so into the groove with one project that suddenly there's a different project and it's like ground zero. Here we go.
I had a long conversation with a friend recently about. It was actually with my younger brother. We were talking for a long time, and I was telling him like, completing a goal does not make me feel good. It's the process that matters to me the most.
Right.
Like the pursuit of the goal.
Yeah.
Because every time I finish something awesome, I am immediately depressed until I find the next thing that's like I'm inspired and all my focus is going into it. Like when I got home, as soon as I got off the plane from Realms Deep and it was over, I was like legitimately, I felt all of the symptoms of like clinical depression for like a couple of days at least. And like, got to get back on the horse. So, and then something else comes on and I'm like, oh yeah, and now I'm normal again. Like, but I'm like addicted to that. I want to say, I mean, you might say I'm a workaholic, but you know, I love the process. I love the part of this that is working with you guys and working with the team and like moving towards something bigger.
Right. Yeah. That, you know, that holds a lot of weight too. I've been reflecting on that actually most recently. I was talking with some friends as well as Maria, my wife at home. There's like this kind of goal I set for myself 5 years ago. I was like, okay, when I start making this amount of money and work on these many projects and making this kind of music, I'm going to be fun. I'm going to be so satisfied. I'm going to be great. Well, 5 years later, I'm doing all those things, hitting those numbers, working on the things that I love. And I'm like, well, nothing's changed. And that was when it was kind of like, for me personally, it was like, that's when I know that there's more. It's not like you kind of mentioned, it's not for me. I think you and I can kind of share in this. It's not necessarily about hitting the goals. It's a matter of like, it's a matter about like having them and working towards them and always trying to work towards something. Cause I feel like if I, it's just literally proof. It's like, okay, like 5 years ago, this is where I wanted to be. Didn't know when I was going to get there, but here I am now. I am no more or no less satisfied than I was 5 years ago. Cause it's just, there's always going to be the next step. There's always going to be, well, this is what I want to work toward now. It's just an interesting phenomenon. And so maybe we're both workaholics. Maybe we're both, maybe we both have problems.
There's that thing though about how, you know, they say if you're doing what you love, you never work a day in your life. And ever since I got into this whole video game thing, whatever you want to call it, the hours that I've spent doing that are not work to me. I'm like, I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, this is my purpose. And it might not even necessarily be video games, but just like running projects that are the pursuit of goals and helping other people to accomplish them is extremely satisfying to me. Like I literally love the fact that Damian saw me as someone who could be useful and that put me in a role that I could be, you know, and the same thing with Fred Schreiber or whatever. Like I don't necessarily see this stuff in myself, but knowing that I have I won't say a purpose, but you know, like a use, a skill, a talent that can be lent to helping other people do what their goals are. Yeah. You know, it's not even awesome. One of the projects, I can't talk too much about this, but one of the projects I'm working on is like not the kind of game I ever would have imagined being a part of. And you know, in my mind for all this time, I've always been thinking about like, well, what are the types of games that I usually enjoy or the kind of games that I want to make? You know, that's always, for me at least, been shooters and that kind of thing. But as soon as I got my hands on it, I was just, all of the same principles of my use apply to this. And also I'm broadening my horizon of what I think I can do. Right. And yeah. It's like what you said about just finding yourself and like, you're always wanting more. And I don't know. I don't know. I'm trying to see an end state where I would do a pull a Damian and just fade off into existence. Like I'm done now. I don't know if I could do it.
No, it's tough, especially in the creative world. Cause I sometimes think of now, you know, okay, when I turn, I don't know, whenever I retire, would I really just stop writing music? Like probably not. Like would I ever really
being
just
financially dependent on it? Maybe, you know, maybe that's the goal.
Right. It's like if I'm 85 and like I have everything I need, whatever it is, it's like, would I still probably want to make some new music? Probably. You know, I'd probably still want to do something.
Well, like, why does Elon Musk go to work?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, once you got $1 trillion or whatever, like, why does he like?
No, I think it's just the human condition too.
Yeah.
I think there is a certain desire to produce and to do and to. I certainly think it can go to an extent where if you're doing too much, too much, period, it can have an adverse reaction. But I think it's only normal to have the desire to want to contribute to the larger world. And I know that can be a struggle for some, but depending on their upbringing or like, you mentioned clinical depression, like, gosh, if you got depression, it's hard to even want to do anything, period. But
Yeah.
I think it's part of the human condition, whether it's in games or whether it's in, I don't know, business or wherever you are, wherever you work in life. There's a certain desire, I would say, to you want to make a difference. The challenge is being able to recognize that differences can be made on a small scale.
Yeah.
And I think this especially goes for game designers and composers, and especially in the indie scene, whatever, you name it. It's like you can still make a difference, even if it's not, the next Undertale, right? Or whatever it is. Like, you can still make a difference in someone's room, right? Maybe they're having a bad day,
a wisdom or a maturity thing to think about things that way. And I'm a baby in life, I'm still in the spring of my
adolescence,
the year of my life, really. But
just kidding.
Well, I'm if we cut it into 25 years apiece, and hopefully I live to be 100, I'm only just into the second quarter of that. And I don't think I'm going to live to be 100.
Yeah.
But what you're saying, I think, is wise, that, when you're a teenager, you want to change the world, right? I want to be in a rock band that changes culture and shocks audiences and all this kind of thing. Or you want to go join the Peace Corps, you want to join the military,
right?
Or, make a huge difference. But like, once you're at the end of that, the most mature thing you could do is be like, well, I can make life really good for my grandchildren,
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just an armchair psychologist here, but I do think that there's some wisdom in that.
I think of like farmers, local farmers. I mean, that's something when I moved. So I grew up in Philadelphia. When I moved to rural Michigan, and I'm surrounded by nature and just like super down. I mean, gosh, my in-laws are all plumbers. They are the most down to earth people I've ever met. Like, I'm the lone like weirdo artsy guy in the family. Okay. They're all plumbers. They're all tradesmen. They're all craftsmen. They're all, carpenters, you name it. When I see sort of that lifestyle, like, and then again, I literally live around all these farms and cows and stuff and airports and planes. And I think of like, someone, I know it sounds so silly, but like someone's making the corn that's making the cornbread that's feeding the family, So it's, if we can, I personally just think, and I go, this is kind of an interesting topic to be talking about on this podcast. Personally, it just kind of happened this way. But I think if we can all kind of, as folks in the game industry, kind of recognize the importance of the little changes that you can make for just, again, maybe someone's having a bad day and they just, what? I heard this game, Valkyrie just came out. My day was awful. I'm going to turn it on. And they're like, this is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah. And
you just made, Valkyrie, Call of Saregnar, whatever, may never be the next big Minecraft or you name it, Undertale, the overnight successes, but it still can make a difference. It can still do what those huge games can do on a much smaller scale, which is just as important. I don't know. That's how I like to look at life, at least. Helps me sleep.
Of the various projects that I work on within the Keep in general, like, Call of Saregnar is unique in that group because it is a ready-made team. Like, it was like just basically I'm just like, I'm gonna join your team, and then Damian, if you could just like act like my company is a bigger deal than it is, that way I get something out of it, that would be great.
Right.
That's and then, but part of what I really love about the other teams is that the assembly of bringing people together who have like talents that complement each other. Like, I looked at Uber, and I looked at Scumhead, Sam and Sam and Michael, and I was like, you're my favorite level designer. And I looked at Scumhead, and I'm like, you're like my favorite artist right now, and you both work in the Doom engine, you're both so good at what you do. Like, if I brought you together, maybe we could all make something that's really special. Like that's kind of how I think. And that's part of why I think I'm useful in many ways, is that I have the podcast has created this huge network of, like, I know so many people with so much talent. When I walk into a room or chat room or whatever, and somebody's like, hey, do you know anybody who can do so and so? I'm looking for him for my game, and I can just rattle off like, yeah, I know exactly the right guy for that. That's so special to me, and I really do. it's not like a power. It's more like a, just a, like I said earlier, feeling useful, feeling like you're contributing in some way.
Yeah.
And,
That's great. No, I love it, Ty. You're doing great things. And
yeah.
it's an honor to know you and just to be part of the larger network. I may not hang out on your Discord. I may not hang out, period, on any Discord at all, ever. But
it's terrible way to spend the day.
it is cool to see. It is cool to see what you're doing and what kind of community you're creating. It's kind of funny because it's I'm always, especially in the keep and that 3D realms, world side of it's like I always kind of feel like this stream. Like again, we even had the audio podcast where like someone mentioned the Doom theme, and I'm like, question mark, like not.
That was so cool to me. I just loved that, and that's what I love about you in general is that you are like you live in this different kind of cultural world of like what kind of art you're exposed to and enjoy and all that, but that means you have something to contribute, right?
Right.
And you bring that to the table, and you're adding a new spice to a dish that I had never considered could taste as good as it does. And like, that's what I admire so much about you. And like, I knew that for that panel, you would be the odd man out. It was going to be just.
I'm used to it.
Yeah.
I'm used to it.
Every time someone asks about you or brings you up to me, my first response is always like, I feel inappropriate being on a team with him because he's too sweet and nice and innocent, and I feel like I'm corrupting him. And
gosh, I know. Well, here's the thing. I try to find joy in every moment, and I think we had a pretty heavy loss in our family last year. My wife had some pretty bad health things when we first got married. Like, I think through that, I've come to realize that it's like we can only. Sure, it's important. It's important to process certain things, but I think we can only create our own happiness to some degree. And so I try to, if nothing else, I just try to be as joyful as I can, even when it feels like the world is burning, as we've seen over the last year. And I don't know. That's just a philosophy that I've had. I jump into my ice bath in the morning and feel great and say, you know what, this day's going to be awesome, and I'm looking forward to it. So I don't know. That's just my approach to life.
Yeah, this is like, welcome to the. This is like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood or Bob Ross painting of a podcast.
I'm sorry. I know this is probably not serving your audience at all whatsoever.
This show is for the Saregnar audience specifically. Like, so.
Okay.
Yeah, and
little do they know the guy, the Call of Saregnar composers just likes cold water and is happy. Is a jolly soul.
No, there's a routine to that, like the simple things that you do, the things that you personally or anybody does throughout their day that keeps them sane or whatever.
Right.
If you need to jump in a bucket of ice in the morning
it's
to be
great.
Happy, none of my business. Whatever.
It makes me more creative. It does. Ever since I've been taking ice baths every day, or cold showers or whatever, I sometimes alternate whatever I feel like that day. It has made me more productive.
Yeah,
100%.
It's like
200%.
What's it? The heat shock proteins that it creates or whatever, and because it sends your body, it makes your body think it's going to die, right? So then you get like flooded with endorphins or what? I don't know how that works.
Yeah, you get a lot of endorphins, you get a lot of dopamine and all that good stuff. And actually, you train. Eventually, you learn to just not be stressed. Like eventually, you can just kind of chill out. Like the first few times, it's pretty tough, but over time, it's just like, oh, I'm just hanging out in cold water. I feel great. But
have you seen that guy Wim Hof?
Yeah. I'm a huge practitioner of his method. That's how I started, actually.
Oh, okay. Do you do the breathing stuff too?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
Do the breathing every day. Do the cold every day, and I have felt great.
Yeah.
For the record, I know people are like, I don't know about that, but I've got to say it's been a life changer.
So are you gonna
my anxiety is like way down actually since starting it. Anxiety has been like non-existent.
When are you going to hike up Everest in your flip-flops though?
I don't know. I want to do it. I know Ben is going to do it. I don't know if he mentioned this on your podcast with him, but he's going to be going up Mount
Kilimanjaro?
Not Kilimanjaro. No, not Kilimanjaro. In Poland,
Mm.
Somewhere in Poland, there's a mountain. He's going out there, I believe, in February to do that, to literally wear shorts and flip flops and go up in the snow. Which for me, again, sounds very exciting. I'm very jealous. Would be quite a cost for me to go out there, so I'm not going to do it. But yeah.
I mean, I had no idea that either of you were doing that. Like,
Yeah, Ben got me into it. Ben was the one. He was like, "You really should try the Wim Hof method," and I was like, "Why?" And he was like, "Well, it might help your anxiety, might help you feel better." I was like, "All right, fine, I'll give it a try." Boom, feel great.
Man, maybe I'll
Not
have
every
to
day.
give it a
Some days
shot.
I'm just like, some days. I mean, some days are just bad days. But you know,
Or do I have to like buy a DVD set or a book, or like how do you do that?
no. He has free tutorials on YouTube that you can
Interesting.
watch. He
Yeah.
has like a paid course that kind of get more detailed, but the basics, all you need is a YouTube channel. But
That's
anyway,
wild. That is so like a left field. I did not know that either of you guys were doing that. I've
both
heard
of
plenty
us.
of interviews with that guy and like how, it all sounds like super interesting. I tried some of that breathing like once just to see like what is he talking about. Like tried to recreate what he's saying he's doing, and it was interesting, but I didn't pursue it any further. Maybe I should though. Maybe
Yeah,
I'll give it a shot.
yeah,
For me, it's like meditation is a big part of how I deal with stress,
yeah. That's
and
great.
like because it's not thinking, it's recognizing when you're thinking about something that you
Yeah,
ought not to be thinking about or whatever, and like just getting really centered in with like you're in control of your consciousness to some extent. Big
right.
change, life changer for me. And
Yeah, and that's great though, because we live in a world now too that it's so unfocused
Mhm.
with like social media and all that stuff, all those little notifications. Like you said, being able, again, it's not the not thinking, it's being able to bring yourself back in,
Right.
pulling yourself back. And that's what, I think that's great. That's awesome. You do that. I'm glad to hear that that's helpful.
Yeah. This is going to be this podcast is going to be like somebody's like, I thought we were talking about music, and then just like,
Yeah, right. I know how little we talked. Gosh, I'm embarrassed.
no,
We
we
should
did. We
redo
talked
this.
for like the first hour about mostly like music and production and your philosophies on that, but then it became like that. I've noticed this and through many instances of interviewing people that usually the first roughly 45 minutes to an hour, if it's not someone you talk to all the time and you can just hit the ground running, is a bit of a struggle to just get comfortable, and you're iterative and you're thinking like, okay, what should I say next? And then at
Yeah,
some point around the hour or so mark, it becomes a conversation. It becomes like a flowing thing, which is why, like, because some people have said before, like, how come they're so long or whatever? Like, why not just do like an hour and just keep it, and that's easy.
yeah,
Or like, I feel like you get the best out of someone. You really get to know someone further into a conversation.
right.
It's a whole process. Now I have had, ones that lasted like, I had one that lasted 4.5 hours, and I felt
Oh my
like the whole
gosh.
time I was just after that first hour completely engaged. I didn't want to leave. I could have talked
Wow,
forever.
that's intense.
Yeah, but once in a while you meet somebody who can just I don't even have to
Yeah,
say anything. They're just hit the ground running. And Dave
yeah,
Oshry from New Blood was like
yeah,
that, where he's like, I might as well, like, I could just leave the room and come back.
yeah.
He's still going to be excited to be talking. No, I love Dave. He's very good at what he does too.
Yeah.
Dude, speaking of cutting it to a time, I've had an hour and a half of your day so far. So, I
Hey, it's
think
been
we
a great
covered,
hour and a half. I will
yeah,
say that much. It's been
we,
awesome.
we covered everything that I sought out to cover. Not that I said at the beginning of this, I didn't prepare anything. So that was it.
Right.
We're done.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, yeah, at this point, I think for the patrons who listen or whoever's listening, just to anticipate, there'll be more details soon about the little prologue EP from Call of Saregnar, which will include, if you've played the demo, that will include those songs as well as a few more. And yeah, I mean, I'll do my best to keep everyone posted as much as I can without revealing too much along the way. But I'll be working on this for a long time, I'm sure. So there's more to come.
Well, on behalf of the fans and myself, and the supporters and everything, thank you for giving us a little window into your psyche there now. And now I hope that what this does ultimately, this little project of the monthly devlog thing, creates that personal connection between, like them and us, you guys, and all this, like, so that they, I feel like if you understand how someone thinks, you appreciate their art more and you're more attached to it. You're more likely to give them your money. I'm just playing, but I mean, to some extent that might be true. I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
this has been awesome.
Well, hey, I'm trying. I try to be as much of an open book as I can. Whether it's about music, whether it's about life, whether it's about jumping in cold water, whatever it is. Like I try to be as transparent as I can, because I think especially in the music world, you see a lot of gatekeeping. You see a lot of like, just, you got to know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, and then you can get your foot in the door. That I'm just trying to be as transparent as I can. I'm even opening the floor completely. Anyone who listens to this, like if you just want to email me, like, hey, tell me about your process or whatever it is. Like I am a complete open book about anything. Always here for anyone. So email me anytime. Reach out. I'm not scary. I promise. I have a little Kirby plush up in the corner, which proves that I'm not scary, right?
See, this is where I think I'm going to corrupt you, because my first reaction to you saying anybody can email me, I'm like, you're going to get dick pics. That's the first thing I think.
Well, hopefully I don't get one of those. Unless it's from you, Ty.
It won't be from me. I hope this doesn't come from anyone unless you want that, but you've said you don't.
Definitely not. Please don't do that. Please don't do that, or else I'll have to block your email address. And be very polite about it.
That's a good place. It's a good place to cut it.